Burniston, and today I've got a pop-up tutorial using one of my favorite new inserts from the Journey collection, and that is the Suitcase Pop and Cuts insert. And then there's always a decorator die. So the decorator die for this one is the Big's Suitcase die. And then for a Pop and Cuts base, I now have multiple choices, and I'm going to use the brand new base, which is the 5x5 square base with the decorative edge. And any Pop and Cuts insert will fit in this base. In fact, any Pop and Cuts insert will fit in any Pop and Cuts base. And then for some added fun, I think I'm going to use this movers and shapers piece in the Suitcase insert. You know, teach you a cool little technique with that. So let's get started. So this is the card that I'm going to make on the video today using the Suitcase dies. And I did slow down the speed just a little bit for those of you who did ask me to go a little slower. Pop and Cuts bases have a big open area for you to put the insert in, and that's true across any of them. This is the new square base, and it still has tick marks in the center, so you always put your insert in, you check and make sure that your tick marks line up. Now the Suitcase insert has an open area in the middle, and that allows you to sink a movers and shapers shape in there as an option. And so for this one, I'm going to put a little label-shaped hole in the middle of my suitcase. And then I'm going to put a little decorative piece of paper on the die first to be able to cut a decorator suitcase. That's going to change the color of my pop-up. And then I'll put my full piece of paper, the one that's going to cut the entire integrated pop-up card, over the whole die. Now I will need extended cutting pads to run this die because it is a Big's XL size, and that can just go right through the Big Shot machine. Now because I cut those both at the same exact time, then that little movers and shapers piece, that magnetic piece, couldn't have shifted in between the two cuts, so that I will be left with a decorator piece once I trim away where the fold lines are on the decorator piece. I will be left with a decorator suitcase that is going to perfectly match my big pop-up card. And that's because it was cut at the same time. Most of the Pop and Cuts inserts just make a standard box pop-up, and the Suitcase is one of those types. So what you do is you get your fingers into the suitcase area and you work that fold across the back. And that's the little shelf that brings your pop-up forward. Then you pinch where the suitcase touches that shelf, and then right along the base of the suitcase where it touches the card. Your last fold is actually the center of the card, and you can see after you press it all down how you've just made a simple little box inside the card. Very, very simple to fold. Now remember, I cut that little decorator suitcase at the same time, so it has the same hole in the same location, and I can just go ahead and distress that a little bit with some ink. I've masked off the handle for this process so that when I remove the Post-it note, I'll still have that white handle. Since I am planning on having that front pop-up suitcase be a little window to something that you can read in the background, I thought a window pane might be a nice touch, so I went ahead and added a piece of transparency behind that little decorator suitcase. Pop and Cuts inserts always have a decorator die or embossing folder, something that decorates them and coordinates perfectly. And for the Suitcase Pop and Cuts insert, there is the Big's Suitcase die. So this is steel rule, which is nice because you will be able to use it on all your flat projects, cutting it out of a variety of other materials. But what you're watching me do here is actually use a shorter cutting pad and have that cutting pad stop a little short of the bottom cut of the suitcase. And I'm going to show you why I did that. For this particular card, I want to suspend this little decorator suitcase into the card, and it needs a little foot to do that. So by keeping my cutting pad off of that final cut, it will actually turn it into a little fold. So then you'll see I have like a little foot underneath my suitcase. There are a lot of little decorator pieces on the Big Suitcase die, and those are all kind of isolated into their own areas so that you will be able to use little scraps of paper and, you know, not have all that little confetti from where the little scraps hit the other pieces. They're all kind of in their own little area. One of them cuts 4 little corner pieces. There is a buckle and a handle. So I'm going to use all of those in black on my 2 suitcases today. For the little corner pieces, I'm going to add them to my front suitcase, the one that has the window in it. And since I got a little time here while I'm going to work on the other one, I'm going to add some glossy accents to those little corner pieces and set that aside to dry. And that's going to give them that little shiny look on that finished suitcase. I'll use my handle piece on my solid suitcase. So that's the one that's going to go in the back. That's the one that you're going to be able to view through the window. And that's also where I want to put my little message stamp. You can kind of see that little stamp set there behind me underneath my hand. That's a darkroom door stamp set. It's called Lovebirds. It's one of my favorites, and I love this little message stamp. And I also did a little bit additional decorating of that little back suitcase, and you can kind of see that there. Now, before I can put that inside my card, I first of all need to have a little slot for the handle to come through. So I'll take my scissors and just right along the back where the other handle kind of came out, so there's a hole there, I'm just going to add a little slot. And now it's time for a backing card. Now the great thing about Poppin' Cuts bases is that they can be cut without anything in them at all. And when you do that, you will get just a solid card. So in this case, this base die will cut a 5x5 square card with decorative edges. So you're going to see now when that comes out of the machine and I fold that in half, I just have that pretty card. And that might be used on a lot of projects, whether or not you intend to put a pop-up in every single one of them. When you do use it as a pop-up backing card, though, I do recommend that you trim down at least the front section, just so you're not trying to line up all those corners. All you need is a tape runner to add a backing card, and the most important thing to know is to always add your adhesive around the pop-up. Don't add the adhesive to your backing card, then you're guessing where your pop-up goes. Instead, always add your adhesive around the pop-up itself. That way you know for sure you're missing your little open areas. You do one half, then you flip the card over. Again, I'm taking my tape runner around the pop-up on the pop-up card. That's where your adhesive goes. Now in this half, the backing card's going to cover that whole half, so I can kind of just put adhesive everywhere. I like to lift it up into that 90-degree position. I find it the easiest that way to get it all perfectly aligned. And now I've got my backing card on the pop-up card. Now that my backing card's on, I can go ahead and add my little back suitcase. I will just need some adhesive along the foot, so I've added some score tape. Peel that up and make it sticky, and then I'm going to fold that under and keep it attached to my finger until I can get that suitcase into a good position so that I don't actually, stick that down too soon. The little handle will come through the slot that I made, and then that little foot will stick right down there to the bottom of the card. And what I usually like to do is just line up the end of that little foot right in the fold of the card. You can see it there from the side view. My cool glossy accent corners have dried, so now it's time to just use some tape runner and add that little decorator suitcase to the front of the pop-up. Those little holes will line up perfectly when I do that. I've assembled a couple combination of some stamps and a little die cut to make a little branch with leaf and a bird, and I'll add those to the front. And I'm also going to distress one of the two labels that came out when I was die cutting earlier, and then I can stamp a little greeting on that. One of the other decorator pieces on the suitcase die is a little buckle, and that can be used with a solid suitcase and the strap that's included on that die. But since I don't have a solid suitcase, I'm still going to use my buckle, but I'm going to use it on the front of the card, and I will use it with ribbon. Going back to my Poppin' Cuts base, since that is a 5x5 square, there was some area out on the end of the die that I didn't want to waste. I'm a crafter like you. So I went ahead and added this cool little flourish piece to that die. So that comes on your Poppin' Cuts base, the 5x5 square. So I cut a couple of those, and then I'm going to go back to my big suitcase and get myself a little tag. And now I have all the pieces to decorate my card. And you can see now my finished card. So this is how I combined all those die cut pieces as well as a few more stamps from that Lovebirds stamp set into a very cool little pop-up card. Now, if you are watching this for the first time and you actually started on YouTube, you can find a link to the blog post that has all of the supply list and the photos of this card right there down below this video. Here are the 4 dies that I used on the card. Buying information can be found on Sizzix.com. I would highly recommend that you subscribe to my YouTube channel if you liked this tutorial so that you can see some more, and thanks for watching.